Hello, I'm Claire Smith and welcome to my channel. So today's video is just going to be discussing some recent releases and also some upcoming releases. I'm just going to take you through about 25 different fragrances that are just coming our way in 2025 or are new on the shelves in 2024. So if you haven't seen me before, I'm Claire Smith. I make videos all about perfume, perfume science, perfume history, perfume psychology, and I also just do some strict perfume reviews and also fun perfume tags. So if that kind of thing interests you and you haven't already done so, then please do consider subscribing and please also press the like button if you do like this kind of content. So I thought this video would just be a fun end to 2024, and really there are so many releases these days. You know, we're at peak perfume, aren't we? Where the flanker is king, and ultimately there are just so many pass me by, I don't even notice that they're happening. So I thought I'd just share with you the new releases that I've found out about, or the ones that I've just recently seen in store even. So the first fragrance is from YSL and it's Black Opium Glitter. So this one, I think it's already maybe been released in the US, but it's not out in the UK until 2025. And I'm really intrigued to try this one. So this is a flanker with marshmallow. So they've taken out almond and they've taken out licorice and replaced them with marshmallow. So the bottle, I think, really reflects the notes really nicely here. It's kind of pink and looks frosted, almost like it's covered in cornstarch and icing sugar, just like marshmallows are. And this one just really makes me want to try it. I think this one is going to do well for them. So that's Black Opium Glitter. So the second fragrance is one from Paco Rabanne and it's called Fame Couture. So this is a flanker of the original fragrance that was released a few years back. Fame, which had mango and very distinctively jasmine, and then it was supposed to have incense in the base. To be honest, I never really smelled anything incensey in Fame, and I think I even tried the intense version. I didn't smell anything incensey there. So I'm intrigued to know whether I can actually smell incense in this other version. So the thing that really stands out about this one is that the bottle is insane. So normal Fame bottles are just nuts anyway. But they've put a fur jacket around the Fame design bottle, which just makes it look like something from Sesame Street. But it just does make me also just want to pick it up and try it because it does just look so kitsch and so nuts. So I'm really hoping that this is a really cosy, powdery, vanillic incense fragrance. But who knows with Paco Rabanne, it could just be powdery vanilla, couldn't it? So yes, that's Fame Couture by Paco Rabanne. So the next fragrance is a new flanker from Giorgio Armani, and it's a flanker of the My Way line. It's called My Way Ylang, which I think is a really odd name. You think they'd be able to find something better to call it really than after one of the notes, but I guess they couldn't. So this one has notes of mango and also coconut, but also clearly Ylang Ylang. But it also has the standard My Way notes of the tuberose, the orange blossom, and also the base notes of the cedarwood, the musk, and the vanilla. So this one, I think it just looks like some kind of reboot of something like Dolce Garden or something like that. That's really the fragrance that this one makes me think of, or that it might resemble. I'm guessing it's going to be quite a milky kind of style coconut or even a creamy coconut. Probably more milky, I would imagine. And the mango is really going to make this feel very tropical, isn't it? And the Ylang Ylang, I imagine, is going to be more of the banana-y style Ylang Ylang rather than the older style Ylang Ylang. I can imagine this one just being really sweet, and probably this is going to be very popular. I think this is really something quite different from the My Way line. I don't think we've had a flanker like this one before, but I don't think this is a particularly different type of note structure from the fragrances that I've seen out there in the designer market. So yeah, My Way Ylang Ylang I'm sure will be popular just because it's got very popular notes in it. So the next fragrance is one from Prada and it's part of the Infusions line. So this is a new Infusions flanker and this one's called Infusion de Rhubarbe. So rhubarbe in fragrances for me can be very hit and miss. It can really be done very badly or very well. Dolce & Gabbana's L'Imperatrice, where it's quite sour, or something more syrupy and sweet like Nina Ricci, Ricci. I like both versions of rhubarbe in those fragrances, but I feel like the one that Prada are going for is the more sparkly, fresh kind of version. So they've got green mandarin here, and they've also got some white musk, but also some aldehydes. So I'm imagining the aldehydes are going to make this smell sparkly. And hopefully this is going to be a good one. I used to own one of the original of this line from way back, the original Iris flanker. And I tried the new one and it just wasn't quite so much for me, and I didn't end up buying another bottle of it. But I have tried the rest of the line nowadays, and I feel like, although I like a lot of them, there are none that stand out enough to make me want to buy them. So I'm wondering whether this is going to be the one. So this is Infusion de Rhubarbe by Prada. So the next two are two from one of my favourite houses back in the day. Not so much these days. The new releases haven't interested me so much, but these are two new releases from Miller Harris. So I think these ones are already out. I seem to have just missed these. I haven't heard anything about them. So they're called Staccato and Mineir, or Mineir, I'm not really sure. So I think these were released back in November, so they've already been out a while. So the first one, Mineir, it really stands out to me that they've got mountain air here. I've just tried a fragrance from Armani Jane with a note of mountain air, and that really did have a very fresh feel about it. So I'm imagining this one's going to be fresh as well. So the other things here that really make me think this might be a fresh fragrance are the fact that there's salt here and there's also herbal notes. I think really a fresh fragrance for me is something that's really hard to pull off, and it takes a lot to impress me. So this one is not something that interests me as much as perhaps the other fragrance in this line. So the other fragrance is called Staccato, and this one interests me so much more. So actually the notes here make me think of another one of their recent releases, Soufflot, that I tried. That wasn't ultimately for me, but I really did like the opening of that fragrance, and maybe this one is going to be the one for me. So I really love that there's tobacco, ginger, cardamom, leather, things that I absolutely love in this fragrance. So I read some reviews of this fragrance, and one person was referencing another fragrance that I own, Etui Noir, and saying that this was a punchier, more modern version of Etui Noir, which is quite a gentle suede fragrance. Another person was also saying that this is punchy only because it's got ambroxan and isoe super in it. So who knows what I'll think, whether this one will be one for me or not. But I am interested in trying this one. So that's Staccato by Miller Harris. So the next brand I want to talk about are Tom Ford. And Tom Ford are a brand that pumps out fragrances like there's no tomorrow. Considering they are the high-end designer, aren't they? They're pumping out a single fragrance over the last 17 years every 45 days from the number of fragrances that are in the Fragrantica database. That's insane. When I read that stat, I was astounded. So anyway, true to their word, they've put out 3 recent fragrances. The last one I went to try was Black Lacquer, which I can't say was for me. So the one that really interests me is called Amber Intrigue. So this fragrance is supposed to start off quite earthy and fiery with some cinnamon, to have dates, vetiver, sandalwood, and then to dry down into amber and labdanum. So I'm imagining something quite leathery, something quite sticky with the dates, something quite sweet, something quite warm. I just think this fragrance might be just a bit along the lines of Dates Delight by House of Oud. I'm really intrigued to try this one because I really like Dates Delight. Even though it wasn't entirely for me, I did really like elements of it, and I thought it was a really good fragrance. And if this is anything like Dates Delight, I'll probably love it. So yeah, Amber Intrigue, I'm really interested to try. So another fragrance is called Rose Exposed, and to me this just sounds like a re-release. It sounds like Tom Ford are being very politically correct at the moment and renaming a fragrance that was called Rose de Russie into Rose Exposed. And they've slightly tweaked the notes, but it looks very, very similar to that previous release. So this is described as a peppery, woody, leathery rose. So the thing that concerns me here is just how strong the peppery notes are, because if the balance isn't right here, there's no way I'm going to like this. But, leather and rose is a very classic combination, isn't it? And this one could be lovely, but I do worry that it's exactly the same or very, very similar to something I've already smelled, which is Rose de Russie. So we'll see. But yeah, that's Rose Exposed by Tom Ford. And the final one from Tom Ford is called Bois Pacifique. And this one is actually marketed solely to men, as Tom Ford weirdly does with its different lines. So its more expensive, higher priced line is marketed as unisex, and then its cheaper lines are marketed to single sexes, which I think is an interesting reflection of the overall fragrance market, really, isn't it? Like the cheaper fragrances, the more designer fragrances are generally single sex marketed, and then the more niche ones are in general unisex marketed, and people make up their own mind. So this one intrigues me because I absolutely love cardamom, I love incense, and this just sounds like something I might really love. So I don't care if it's marketed to men, I'm going to go try this one. So that's Bois Pacifique. So next there are loads of Theodoros Kalotinis fragrances that have come out this year, especially from their cheaper line. And they're mostly gourmand fragrances, and I guess the gourmand fragrances must be their best sellers because they've kind of shied away from the original releases that they did of the more florals and the greater range that they had there, and are just really concentrating on the gourmands in the lower price line. But then in the higher price line, they're kind of differentiating that particular line by not focusing on gourmands. So I think that's an interesting business model from Theodoros Kalotinis. So from their mass market line, really the most recent release is Amaretto Peach, which sounds absolutely delicious. I love the idea of a boozy peach. I feel like peach I used to really struggle with, and I think it was just a sort of certain type of peach in fragrances, which is that kind of powdery, ambery, vanilla patchouli kind of peach that was very popular in the 2010s and 2000s. I feel like peach has moved on for me now, and I can really enjoy peach in fragrances. But a boozy peach, Amaretto with cocoa does sound absolutely delicious. The next one from Theodoros Kalotinis is called Bubblegum Factory. So this sounds like it's a straight up sugary strawberry bubblegum kind of fragrance. There's not really that much going on from what I can read about this one. I don't think this one interests me so much. I did at one point have Toy 2 bubblegum, and that fragrance, as much as I like the opening of it, by the dry down I really wasn't that fussed by it. I don't think that kind of bubblegum fragrance is generally something I'm going to reach for on a regular basis, so I don't think this will interest me. So another one is called Cinnamon Rolls, and this sounded delicious because I was imagining sort of a cinnamon Danish, but actually when I read reviews of it, people were sort of comparing it with cinnamon oatmeal, which doesn't sound quite so delicious, and also to Big Red chewing gum. So I imagine it's very heavy and very hot kind of cinnamon. So yeah, from the name, yes, but from people's descriptions of this, maybe not. So another release from Theodoros Kalotinis this year that I haven't tried is Pistachio Latte. So this one sounds like a really milky pistachio fragrance, and from what I've read, it seems not to be something that's being compared to Yum Pistachio. So I think this is something that interests me. If I can find a sample of this one, I might try this one. And finally, there's another one from Theodoros Kalotinis called Cotton Candy. So people are comparing this one to Bianco Latte, and just from that description alone, that one doesn't interest me in the slightest. I feel like there are so many fragrances out there that smell exactly like Bianco Latte or very close to it. So I think I'm good with Cotton Candy, but let me know if you tried any of those five from Theodoros Kalotinis and what you thought of them. So the next fragrance is one from Jo Malone, and a few people have been talking to me in the comments section about this particular fragrance, and it just made me so intrigued that I had to go try it. So this is from the Cologne Intense range, I think, and it's called Hinoki and Cedarwood, so that's what I'm expecting. But really, Jo Malone tends not to give too much away in their note profiles, do they? So the thing that really shocked me about actually smelling this one was the fact that there's aldehydes here in the opening. So it's got a kind of sort of almost soapy, bubbly, clean feel, and that with the hinoki wood, which is slightly smoked, even a little bit spiced almost, very gently spiced, and the warmth of the cedarwood is really enticing. I just found this one really relaxing, really spa-like, really zen-like almost, and I think that somebody could really fall in love with this one. I can see why this one's popular. It is quite linear, mostly, I would say, apart from the aldehydes at the beginning. But if you just want a fragrance that smells great at the beginning and great at the end, then this is a great fragrance to go and try. On me, it was quite loud, actually, this one. For the first hour or so, it was really projecting off me. But actually, after about 3 or 4 hours, it was more of a skin scent. So yeah, that's Jo Malone's Hinoki and Cedarwood. So the next fragrance is one from Cream. It's called Fragaria. So Fragaria is not out until January officially, but if you're in the UK, you can go and try it in Selfridges during December. So this one is a strawberry fragrance, but it also has pink pepper, it has citrus in the opening, it also has violet leaf, and also some vetiver. So I think really from my point of view, pink pepper and Creed might make this a very sharp fragrance. Creed tend to put a lot of ambroxan, especially in their more modern releases, and that worries me that I might not like this one, but I am intrigued because it's strawberry. Strawberry is a note that I think is done particularly badly in fragrances a lot of the time, and if you get a good strawberry fragrance, it really stands out. So I do want to go try this one, but Creed are so expensive, aren't they? £260 for a bottle of Creed fragrance is something I don't think I'd ever be prepared to pay, but we'll see how I get on with this one. So the next fragrance is one from Latte, and if you know me and watch me regularly, you will know that Latte is not my favourite brand, but I do occasionally get intrigued and I would like to try this one if I saw a sample of it. I'm never going to blind buy a Latte fragrance. It's just too risky for me. 99% of them I just find I don't enjoy. So this would just be too much of a punt, especially since it's at a higher price point. But this one's Teriyaki Intense. So this is a Quentin Biche creation for Latte. He already did Teriyaki. And teriyaki actually means antidote. And I really like that they've got the snake going around the bottle. I think that's really, fitting with the name, isn't it? So the thing that's really intrigued me about this fragrance is that it's been widely compared to Plum Japonaise by Tom Ford. And that fragrance has been long discontinued. I've never tried it. And everybody had been telling me just how good that fragrance was. So if it does smell like Plum Japonaise, I'm really interested. But since I've never smelt it, I'm never going to know, am I? So I think the thing that scares me about this fragrance is that it's got saffron in it. And saffron and me and Latte just don't get on as a mix. So it probably isn't for me. But I like the idea of the plum. I like the idea of the amber and the resins. And I just think this one could be something that I might possibly enjoy. So that's Teriyaki Intense by Latte. So the next one is one from Swiss Arabian. Again, this line hasn't been a winner for me. So this one is Shagaf Vanilla Toffee, and you may have seen all the images on Instagram, and I don't know whether people put it on YouTube as well, but there was an influencer party as part of this launch, and pretty much everybody you could ever name in the fragrance world appeared to be at this influencer party. And there was a lot of hype around this fragrance, and it just makes me wonder how this fragrance smells. I've tried 3 from this line already and I haven't enjoyed them. So I think this is something that I would definitely want to sample, and I probably wouldn't want to pay for a sample either. I'd probably just want to go to a stall and just spray it, because there's one that I look quite local to me where I can just spray these fragrances. I think the ironic thing is that this seems to have got more hype than Oud Tonka, yet it's less popular. So I'm just wondering exactly what's wrong with this one and why people don't seem to be loving it. So that's Shagaf Vanilla Toffee by Swiss Arabian. So the next fragrance is one from Kayali, and I really feel like I've just given up with Kayali. I don't really try and keep up now because they just release so many fragrances and I have to pay to sample them because they're never in any store anywhere near me. But this one kind of did interest me in the beginning because of the marshmallow. But really, from the descriptions that other people have given, this is less interesting to me now. So this is Yum Bougie Marshmallow. They're always such mouthfuls, aren't they, Kayali names? But this one, I think, is described by a lot of people as a strawberry milkshake, which interests me less. But, I'm still a little bit intrigued. I think the last one I tried from Kayali was Tobacco Oud, and I did really like that. I would really like to try Silk Santal as well from Kayali now that they've re-released it. And I would actually like to try the rest of the ouds. I think that line is probably more me than the main line that's more gourmand based. I think, Kayali have gone in a direction that's perhaps not quite as much me as it perhaps once was. But I am still intrigued by their fragrances. So yeah, Yum Bougie Marshmallow. So the next fragrance is one from Erin, and it's called Rose Cocoa. So this sounds absolutely delicious. It's got champagne, truffle, cocoa. There's loads going on in this fragrance. But reading reviews of this one, there's a huge split between some people who think that this is a sparkly rose and citrus fragrance, other people who think this is a straight up powdery rose fragrance, and then other people describe this as a rose dipped in chocolate. So those descriptions are all pretty different, aren't they? So I'm wondering which one this is. Erin are a brand that I tend to shy away from these days because of their links in that really unfortunate report about child labour. I'm pretty sure that there are other brands linked elsewhere that we just don't know about, but it just makes me less interested in their fragrances generally. But this one does sound intriguing, and I do like the sound of the notes. If you could smell the champagne, the truffle and the cocoa, I think I'd be right there. It sounds like a really interesting combination of notes. So that's Erin Rose Cocoa. So the next 2 fragrances are 2 from Glossier, and I do have some samples of these ones, and I'm debating whether to do a separate review video, but I'll just summarise my thoughts here really. I got given some samples by Fiona, so thank you so much Fiona for sending those, because I was on the point of buying samples for those 2 fragrances, because I am a really hardcore Glossier U fan. I have finished one of the original bottles from the original release in the UK, and it's a fragrance that I did really used to love, and I had to kind of almost stop myself buying a second bottle of it because, I need to move on, don't I? I need to try different fragrances. But I do just really like Glossier U. There's something about it, although people do say it's been reformulated. So Rev and Do are two new flankers. It's taken Glossier 7 years to come up with these flankers. So I was expecting something pretty good. So Rev means dream, and Rev on paper looked like something that I'd be really into. I was really intrigued by the idea of the plum, but when I smelt it, it just smelled like black cherry to me more than plum. It didn't really smell plummy at all, really. So this opens with black cherry, but really the thing that dominates the whole fragrance throughout is a really peppery cashmere. The cashmere really takes over very early on and is there throughout the life of the fragrance. And that for me was a bit disappointing. It wasn't something that I particularly enjoyed. There is a kind of very dense texture to this fragrance, as you might expect with a fragrance that has lots of cashmere in it. And this one actually lasted quite a decent amount of time on my skin. It was quite sweet and syrupy even, but really for me it was my less favourite of the two. The one that I preferred was Dew, and Dew sadly didn't last very long on my skin at all, even though it could be that I'm becoming anosmic to Dew perhaps, as Glossier U is notorious for making people anosmic. I think Dew is much closer to the original Glossier U than Rev is, but I think Dew has a kind of slight smokiness, very, very slight. Everything is very soft. That's the whole idea of that fragrance. So even if I say smoky, I mean a very soft smokiness. There's even a slight spiciness, again, a very soft spiciness. And you just get a lot of the original Glossier U coming through in this fragrance as well. But it also has quite a sweetness to it. So there's the sweetness, the muskiness, the woodiness, the spiciness, the slight smokiness. It's just really nice, but sadly on me it just fades. I think I just prefer the original release from Glossier. I don't think I'm going to be rushing out to buy a bottle of either of these, but I did greatly prefer Dew over Rev. So yeah, please let me know what you think of those two releases as well, if you have tried them. So the next fragrance is one from Hermes, and it's called Barenia. So Barenia is a modern, cheaper fragrance. So what do we mean by that? We mean something with that intense woodiness that's along the lines of something almost going into something leathery. So instead of oak moss, in this case of a Mon Chypre, it's something that's going to have probably patchouli. You might have other notes that might suggest something around patchouli. So in this case, I think it has patchouli, it has oak listed, and also akigala wood. So there's a lot going on in this fragrance. There's also miracle berry here, and miracle berry is something I'd never heard of, but apparently it's something that's meant to make things taste sweet. So I'm intrigued to know what that adds to the fragrance. But I'm intrigued when I get my sample to try it out properly, because I have had a quick spritz in store and I got one note that isn't listed, and it was cashmere. I got a lot of cashmere in this fragrance, and I'm intrigued to know whether my sample is exactly the same. So I will review this one probably in time, but this one did underwhelm me slightly because of the cashmere. But I can see as well that it is an interesting fragrance, and I do think this is one of the better releases so far this year that I've smelt. So that's Hermes Barenia. So the next fragrance is one from Van Cleef & Arpels, and it's called Musc de Soie. So this is described by the brand as being based around soft aldehydes, neroli petals, and then a mid of creamy notes such as sandalwood and benzoin, and then a dry down of soft white musk and cashmere. So this sounds like it's going to be a gentle aldehyde and probably quite dense cashmere fragrance. Is it me, or is cashmere everywhere at the moment? I really hope this one isn't peppery. I might go try this one and see what I think of it. I really like the idea of the aldehydes at the beginning. I like the idea of something sparkly with a white musk. I really like the mid notes of the sandalwood and also the benzoin, but the cashmere worries me. I really hope it's not too cloying, but I really like the idea of it evoking the sort of sensuality of silk. I think that's a really interesting idea, and I'd be interested to sort of smell the texture of this fragrance and see whether it does evoke silk for me. So that's Musc de Soie by Van Cleef & Arpels. So the next fragrance is Gucci Guilty Love Edition. I feel like this one is a re-release, but they have actually changed the notes of this fragrance and made a new fragrance, even though they've not given it a new name. So Love Edition 2025 sounds like it's going to be released for Valentine's Day. I don't know whether it's already been released. So they're not giving too much away with the listed notes. The listed notes are amber, patchouli and lilac. So lilac is a note that I absolutely love in fragrances, and if it's done well, it's gorgeous. And I'm really hoping this is going to be a super powdery, really strong purple floral smelling fragrance. I really want to love this one. I really was intrigued by the original Love Edition because I think that one was widely regarded as quite close to Chloe Love, which was also a very loved fragrance. So yeah, Gucci Guilty Love Edition, I'm intrigued to smell. So the next fragrance is a new one from Billie Eilish, and this is due for release in 2025. And it was actually announced back in September, but she's really not given too much away with this one. So we just know the title is called Your Turn. And I'm imagining from the pictures that she shared that this fragrance might be based around the idea of black and white. So I'm imagining maybe some musk in one end of the fragrance and then something black, maybe some licorice, something darker, something leathery perhaps. Something with some extremes in colour in the world of fragrance is really what I'd love to see from this fragrance. Maybe some coconut could be the white. Who knows? We don't have any notes. We don't have any idea about what this fragrance might be. You know, in reality, I'm probably way off because this is probably like to be a gourmand fragrance, isn't it? It's Billie Eilish after all. What am I thinking? It's a celebrity fragrance. It's going to be a gourmand. But you can dream. So yeah, I'm intrigued to know what this is. So that's Your Turn by Billie Eilish. And the final fragrance is one from Victoria Beckham, so it's called Reverie, and Victoria Beckham's fragrances I am so intrigued to try, but I'm so put off by the price point, so to try 4 fragrances is £40, so it's £10 a sample for those fragrances. But yeah, I am intrigued, even though I think I'll only really probably like 1 or 2 out of the range. I probably will do a video eventually. So Reverie intrigues me because it's tobacco leaf, it's plum, it's cedar, it's vanilla and it's tonka. It just sounds really warm and inviting and just kind of sexy in a way, this fragrance. But I know this one's had really mixed reviews. So a lot of people have been comparing this one to Celine's Black Tie. And I guess when fragrances are expensive and they do remind you of something that you've already smelled, that can be disappointing. But I am just really intrigued to try this one, and I probably will buy a sample set at some point and just give all of these a sniff. So that's Reverie by Victoria Beckham. So that's the final fragrance in this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, then please press the like button and please also consider subscribing if you haven't done already. And please let me know which of these brand new releases are you looking forward to smelling? Have you smelt any of these already? Are there any other fragrance releases in 2025 that you're looking forward to trying? I'd love to hear your answers. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for watching me this year. I really appreciate it, and have a fabulous Christmas if you celebrate, and a fabulous New Year as well. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.